Call of Duty Black Ops 1 released on November 9th of 2010, and it marked the start of one of the most innovative and successful modes in modern gaming. Treyarch would go down on an absolute tear from 2010 through 2016 with its zombie mode, creating unforgettable experiences that many players feel still haven't been replicated to this day. In those years, Treyarch managed to do something that very few developers of modern media can: improve their games further year on year. And it's for this reason that the majority of fans hold the sentiment that Black Ops 3 Zombies is truly Treyarch's greatest triumph. However, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Black Ops 3. And today, we uncover the deeply rich and complex story of the most important map in Zombies history: Origins.
My name is Samantha. I'm going to tell you how all this really began.
Zombie Zone, with full coverage of the world's first Origins spiritual successor, The Tomb, is on January 28th, right when the map launches. Be there for the lead and the steps of the Easter egg. I'll see you there on stream. Prior to Origins, the Black Ops 2 Zombies maps seem to have been built for casual high-round experiences, with a hidden Easter egg that some teams would choose to research and complete, with a clear separation between the map and the Easter egg. In Origins, however, the Easter egg is the clear goal, and you really can't get away from or take your eyes off of it. Players would be met with maps on the wall, circling a so-called crazy place, radio logs with backstories of Dr. Ludwig Maxis, Group 935, and terrifying sounds of 200-foot robots slamming their feet into the ground or gunfire from the sky. Seriously, go to any bunker, generator, or room in Origins, and the likelihood is something will be related to or point towards the Easter egg. The map is truly drenched in atmosphere. We will dive more heavily into the Easter egg later, but Origins began with a lot of other new design quirks that are more than worth a mention. The first change players would instantly notice was the introduction of a brand new starter pistol, the Mauser C96, and although it performed almost identically to the M1911 we'd seen previously, the new pistol for this map made Origins feel different and special right away. Mob of the Dead had made some improvements to the part system, keeping track of collecting parts in the Scores UI, as well as noting which parts teams were missing. Treyarch innovated this even further for Origins, as parts for this map didn't need to be picked up one at a time and taken to the build table. Once collected, they would all just go into your giant invisible Santa sack ready for crafting, which was especially helpful on a map the size of Origins. Origins was huge, like really huge. While Transit was a bigger map, Transit didn't have cesspits of slowing mud that limited a player's movement. Like Transit, Origins did have a vehicle that helped players navigate the map in the form of a gigantic tank. However, some players would opt to use the movement tech of the Pack-a-Punch Mauser to blast through the map.
Thank you, Boomhilda!
Other new innovations included dig spots for loot, the Crazy Place, a Wonder Fizz machine to satisfy the untapped gambling urges of Zombies players for Activision to exploit further in future games, and this asshole. We'll talk about Panzers more later into the video, but these creatures were really a living/digital nightmare for little Evan. Despite all of this innovation, Treyarch's greatest accomplishment on this map would possibly be the introduction of zombie blood, and solely for the voice line that came with it.
Zombie blood.
Play that again.
Zombie blood.
Okay, just one more time.
Zombie blood.
Perfection. With all of this grand innovation, players were more than ready to begin the hunt for Black Ops 2's Easter egg finale. Ironically, the hunt would begin with the ending. The controversial Play the Game Central channel would post the Datamine ending cutscene early, before the Easter egg had even been completed. I have a whole video on PTG and their cheating scandal that I'd encourage you to watch if you want to know more. Treyarch had been using WebM formats to store their cutscenes and intro scenes for the campaign and Zombies. This format was great for saving on files, but meant that once DLCs had been ripped from Xbox to PC, data miners could simply click open and play the cutscene with no extra steps. Thankfully, Thankfully, the concept of an ending cutscene in Zombies was so new that many players didn't really know what they were watching at the time and disregarded this as some sort of teaser. Outside of these problems, the Easter egg began on August 27th of 2013. Amazon's takeover of Twitch deleted a vast amount of clips from back at this time, but I've pieced together the story as best as I can. Firstly, players began by trying to make sense of the visual clues I mentioned earlier. However, Origin's increased focus on the Easter egg meant that for the first time, players were granted more hints via the voice of Samantha.
You have to help me. Please. There is a way to open the gateway.
If she wasn't yelling at players in her polite voice, she was yelling at players in an evil zombie voice. And it's no surprise that zombies wanted to smack the living hell out of us if she's always this rude. Now that voice line may sound somewhat familiar to you, and it sounded very familiar to players attempting to discover the Easter egg for the first time too. Players would come to find out that every step of the Origins Easter egg references Reznov's 8-step escape from Vorkuta in Black Ops 1. Now, I wasn't able to confidently nail down a reason on why Treyarch chose to do this, so let me know if you have an idea why. Securing the keys meant something less literal in Origins than it did in Black Ops 1. Players would come to find out that it wasn't the keys they were trying to find, but instead 4 elemental staffs they needed to build. Now, this is not going to be a step-by-step guide, but I will be glazing some of the steps because it remains some of Treyarch's most creative work to date. And more importantly, the innovative nature of these puzzles fundamentally changed how the zombies community looked at what a wonder weapon could be, and how they could be obtained in Zombies. Players were first introduced to the idea of elemental staffs when they were prompted to place the gramophone down at the entrance to the Crazy Place. Inside the Crazy Place was about as alienated players had ever really felt from the dark, spooky setting Zombies had always seen before, as it was incredibly bright and colorful. The above-ground setting of a dark and gloomy World War I battlefield only helped to enhance this contrast, and in many ways, opening the door to the bright and colorful Crazy Place probably had the more metaphorical impact of opening Zombies in general to a more bright, colorful, and glowing setting, with all of the subsequent Black Ops 3 maps moving to a more luminescent and vivid color palette. Players were familiar with the idea of a craftable wonder weapon with the Sliquifier and the jet gun, but having 4 on one map was pretty mind-blowing for those in 2013. The staffs were a little harder to get too, with them often making use of Origin's new features, such as climbing into the robot's head without getting stomped on, using the shovel to dig but only during a snowstorm, shooting down a glowing plane, and even jumping off the tank into no man's land. While the parts for the jet gun and the Sliquifier had been just scattered around Transit and Die Rise respectively, Origin showed Treyarch's new increased emphasis on connecting a map to its Easter egg, something we would begin to see even more moving into Black Ops 3 and beyond. 12 years on, it's hard to nail down the order in which the staffs were discovered, with MC Sports Talk and Soflo Antonio both uploading a video on all 4 staffs. Once all staffs were in hand, Samantha would yet again come on the intercom to let you know that you're not done.
We're so close. My father couldn't save me, but you can. He promised me. When the final steps are taken, the gateway to Agartha will open. There's more to do. Father said the staffs weren't powerful enough.
Taking a moment to step away from Origins, I have to tell you guys that I've always fluctuated in weight my whole life. If it wasn't from eating extremely unhealthy, then it was definitely from eating too much of a healthy thing. The stress of a world's first Zombies Easter egg is high, but as I've learned, your relationship with food, much like an Easter egg, shouldn't have to be stress at all. I'm down over 100 pounds since then, and that's thanks to good healthy foods that are easy to prepare and taste great too. So thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. 50+ dinner options that suit any healthy diet that you want, with a seasonal menu and recipes that are easy to cook yourself. Support the channel by clicking my link down below and subscribing to HelloFresh. Every purchase just helps me create more stories like this one. And I am not joking when I say these are super easy to cook and definitely beat fast food. It wasn't until 14 hours into the hunt that Sports Talk uploaded the first gameplay of the next steps, showcasing 2 fully upgraded staffs. These staffs had insane abilities, including one that allowed you to flip it around to shoot an instant revive stim at teammates. While Samantha had given some small hints for the base staffs, the ultimate upgraded staff puzzles were completely hidden from players, with no audible hints, only symbols and visual puzzles. And the puzzles that Treyarch had created were incredibly innovative and really interesting to solve. However, according to SpiderBite's videos, half of the staff puzzles were actually brute force the first time around, completely ignoring Treyarch's work. The ultimate lightning staff was the first staff solved, and it has the most basic puzzle out of all of the 4 staffs, because it's the only one that doesn't really require any math. The first half of the puzzle had the community solve a small musical puzzle. The way the devs intended players to figure this out was to notice that the wall that the puzzle takes place on looks kind of like a piano, as well as the hints for what notes needed to be played on the piano are actually laid out kind of like sheet music, accurately telling the player what notes needed to be played. SpiderBite points this out in his video on the staffs.
All right, so here's the layout of our keyboard, and we've numbered each of the triangles as well as put a letter identifying the note to be played. All right, so all you have to do is match up those previous images we showed and activate the notes. We did have one glitch on one of them where I think it was number 8 wouldn't activate once, so we just made sure that was the last one we activated for that chord in order to make it work. And also we did do them from left to right. Not sure if you can do them out of order, if you can do them from right to left or the middle one first and then the other two. We did them from left to right, and that's how we succeeded in completing the part.
The second half of the lightning staff was much simpler and only involved small map changes. At this point, it was assumed players would have found the large circuit breakers in key locations around the map. Those would have started sparking, and if the players interacted with any of the 4 or made it face the same direction as the breaker, the player would have heard a rejection quote saying something like, "That's not right," or that's not really the correct solution, or hey, maybe I should subscribe to this channel since I've been watching this whole series and now I'm up to Origins and I really like these videos. However, if the player got the switch on the circuit to face the correct direction, it would stop sparking. Once all switches faced the correct direction, a sound cue would be played and a massive beam would begin emanating out of the tomb, indicating that, well, maybe that's the direction we ought to go. Once in the tomb, players noticed the previously dormant central floating pillar would now have a bunch of multicolored lights corresponding to the 4 staff colors. 4 switches in the room would now become interactable, and each switch had a particular angle on the pillar, indicating that was the slab of rock it would be tied to. When the switches were interacted with, it caused the corresponding rock section to move, and its colored light to switch. Once all sections of the pillar were the same color, players were intended to shoot the orb that sat below the pillar, and it would return to the Crazy Place totem. The next staff to be discovered, the Ultimate Ice Staff, was so complex for players to crack the first time around that it would eventually just become brute forced. The actual intended solution method for the puzzle is incredibly interesting, however, and something that very few players truly understand, even 12 years on. The staff puzzle was just downright evil, requiring the players to both notice a base 3 and base 4 code was placed in the hint.
What the f does that even mean?
For example, if the blue square gave the player a number like this, we would first need to decipher what number this is. Using the circles, we can figure that a filled circle is a 1 and an empty circle is a 0. And if multiple circles are stacked on top of each other, we can just assume that to be a 2. In the example, we have a filled, an empty, and an empty, which lined up makes 100. We then need to read this number out in a base 3 format. So for that 100, we are talking 1 times 3 times 3, plus 0 times 3, plus 0 times 1. This gives us a final number of 9. We then need to find the ceiling tile that is also encoded to be a 9. However, the ceiling tiles are not in base 3 format, but instead they are encoded in base 4 format. So the player needs to decipher all of the ceiling tiles while zombies are trying to eat that booty. The way these symbols are translated into numbers is as follows. A singular triangle is a 0. A triangle with a line going straight down is a 1. A 1 symbol with a singular line going out to the right is a 2. And a 1 symbol with 2 lines going out to the right is a 3. In order in the example, the symbol translated numbers are 13, 2, 22, 3, 21, and an off-screen 0. If we use base 4 to decode all of these symbols translated numbers, we get 1 times 4 plus 3 times 1 equals 7. 2 times 4 equals 8. 2 times 4 plus 2 times 1 equals 10. 3 times 4 equals 12. 2 times 4 plus 1 times 1 equals 9. And 0 times 4, well, that's just 0. Which means finally, all we have to do is shoot the matching numbers, which in this case is the 5th one since both it and our blue square equal 9. Once the correct tile was shot, they flipped over and grayed out like this. Now, you just had to repeat that 5 more times, and the first half of this puzzle was completed. Now, how they actually did this.
I'm trying to make sense of it, and to be quite honest, I don't think we ever did make sense of it. It was just a matter of going through and just keep, we kept hitting them in order to make them match up.
After completing the first half of the puzzle, 3 animated ice gem colored tombstones spawned outside of the map. All the player had to do was finish all of the math homework, then shoot each of the tombstones with the ice staff to freeze it, then shoot it again with a regular bullet to break it. Over a decade later, it's hard to be sure whether the wind or fire staff upgrades was solved next, although I'm going to guess it's more than likely fire staff being first, as its puzzle is less complex than the former. Players would find that killing enough zombies on a grate would light 4 crucibles. The community then noticed the flaming base 3 code on the church and translated the numbers to decimal. In the bottom of the church, there are torches that line up to all possible numbers from base 3 code, and you would need to shoot the 4 after deciphering and relating them to the code.
I hope you speak the truth.
I've come so far. Please keep going. The journey is near its end.
Finally would come the wind staff, featuring the single most insane puzzle step through all of this. And it still impresses me to this day that they managed to figure this out. Oh wait, they didn't. It was just brute forced again. In the crazy place around the wind tunnel area, there were 4 encoded numbers. They were encoded in base 4 and needed to be translated. These are the decoded base 4 numbers from the symbols. We needed to then decode each of these into decimal, which from left to right is 26, 13, 12, and 27. Next, the player was supposed to notice the pillars line up with the lines on the turnstile on the ceiling. Next comes, in my opinion, the most insane part of any of these staff puzzles. Treyarch wanted players to then do double decoding of 12 symbols on the turnstile, while zombies were trying to attack you. After decoding, all that's left was to make sure that the numbers on the turnstile added together to equal the number that was on the pillar in decimal. In my example, I picked the 12 pillar to show up, but as we know, this is how the community solved this step.
Probably occurred via trial and error. We did try a lot of trial and error stuff, but every single ring has to be in a specific position. And I think what it is it's an additive subtractive thing. So if you line up the symbols line up with the stone that has the markings in them, and the symbols actually are additive / subtractive in order to create the symbol that is shown on the corresponding pillar. Okay.
The map change section of the wind staff involves smoking chimneys that appeared all around the map. All the player had to do was make the smoke blow towards the mound by shooting the chimneys with the wind staff. And that is the way the devs intended the wind staff puzzle to be solved. The staffs took the community a full day to upgrade, and this was with brute forcing, which really makes me question how long this could have taken if brute forcing was removed from the realms of possibility. The insane process to upgrade the staffs was a real pivotal moment in the history of wonder weapons for Call of Duty. Staffs had set a new standard for how strong wonder weapons could be, as well as how they could be crafted and upgraded. The Sliquifire was cool and unique, and being lucky enough to get the Ray Gun Mark II from the box was a great feeling. But truly nothing could be compared to the rewarding feeling of unlocking the incredible power of the goddamn ice staff. Many will argue to this day that the heights of the staffs have never been matched by Treyarch, but the standard they set certainly made them think more about the wonder weapons they added to zombies, and that can be seen clear as day in Black Ops 3's maps. A whole day later, players had finally secured the keys, and they would now need to ascend from darkness, once again in a slightly less literal way than Reznov. Spiderbite cited in his video that people noticed there was a fire pedestal and figured that there just had to be more to it. Spiderbite was the first to discover and apply the method of going into the Odin, Thor, and Freya robots. And yes, those are the actual robots' names. Annoyingly, after working so hard to get the staffs, players had to give them away to progress towards the next step of the Easter egg. Although the final requirement to complete step 2 required players to figure out a whole new side Easter egg called the G-Strike, the G-Strike was hard for a lot of the community to find, with men finding it increasingly difficult, and unfortunately, I'm still yet to find it to this day.
That's what she said.
This wasn't the first time players needed to solve a side Easter egg to progress the main quest, with Mob of the Dead requiring the Hell's Retriever to break the cycle. Damian Wright was the lucky man to find the G-Strike first, posting that it had to do with the blue 115 meteorites and fist stones. Once solved, the G-Strike would become a crazy replacement for the player's tactical grenade. By this point, players had spent close to 2 days on the Easter egg. They had upgraded 4 wonder weapons, and upgraded melee, and upgraded tactical, and we were surely nearing the end of this crazy journey. But no, it was only time to move on to step 3. Although it's clear to see now, it's around this point that the community pieced together that the Easter egg was one large tribute to Vorkuta, as Spiderbite points out in his Rainfire video.
I know this is kind of the third step, but these steps are now following along with the steps of from Vorkuta from Black Ops 1. You remember the 8 steps. 1, secure the keys. 2, ascend from darkness. We've completed those. 3 is Rainfire, and you'll get audio indications from Samantha, particularly when you are in zombie blood mode. You'll get an indication from her saying, hey, Rainfire. She'll say, Rainfire.
I think it's even crazier that this step took about 15 hours between Spiderbite uploads to figure out what to do. They realized the step required them to hop into a giant's head and push a red button, then quickly fire the G-Strike onto this cracked cement of a bunker, which really seems like such a simple step in hindsight. This is where directionally Easter eggs get confusing and take a lot of time, and if there wasn't a visual or audible cue to interact with, then the community would get stumped. But I really liked testing the player base in this way. It was like Treyarch viewed it as a community hunt and not an individual puzzle. What do you think though? Drop me a comment. I just talked about hints that weren't too obvious, and now Samantha is flying a little too close to the goddamn sun. If this Easter egg had you essentially suiting up in every facet of your kit, then it made sense that the remaining buildable had to play a part too. This was called the Maxis drone. And while I could sit here and break down how the community solved this, it was really just finding generic parts around the map. What made this one special was the result of unleashing the Horde. The Panzers, if unprepared for them, were a run killer. and I'd love to see a compilation of teams experiencing this for the first time. Nowadays, we're pretty used to crazy mini-bosses or hordes and Easter eggs, but this set a real precedent back in Origins, as we had never seen a step like this before. I could sit here and applaud Treyarch for what is actually quite a cool step from a narrative and gameplay point of view, but the little Evan still inside me will simply never forgive them for the horror those Panzers put me through. Following the Panzer step, players were met with step 5, which wasn't too hard for teams to figure out at the time, as the clue was pretty self-explanatory. Just as you did while escaping Vorkuta, it was clear this voice line meant destroying an aircraft of some type, like you had done before with the fire staff. The catch this time was that you needed to be in zombie blood. Spiderbite points out that the odd sounds you would hear in normal mode helped indicate players towards this. Once he and his team shot down the plane in zombie blood, they had to put out multiple fires around the map on wagons with the wind staff. Doing this spawned in a zombie blood near Pack-a-Punch. And I'll just let Spiderbite take it from here.
So here I am at the top of the dig site, just waiting for the zombie blood to spawn in here. And then what you're going to do, the beast runs clockwise around the base of the dig site. So what we want to do, and he's quick, so you don't want to try and catch him. You actually want to drop down and go counterclockwise. And I've got the fire staff, best thing to use. Charge it up. I'm just going to come down here. There's a church over on the right-hand side. And I'm going to walk a little bit, then I'm going to charge it up, anticipating that he's going to be coming towards me. And there and he's going to come. He's just a regular zombie, basically. But he's tough. If you just have a regular weapon, you may not be able to take him down. That's why I'm using the fire staff, the charge up fire staff. And look at that. It's Maxis. He hasn't been around since that previous step that we sent him into the pit.
After taking down the helicopter in Vorkuta, Reznov told Mason, which led to a very fun Death Machine gameplay sequence for players. At this point, Spiderbite and NGT Zombies were in the lead for World's First, when they noticed that the zombies' hands were glowing, wrongly believing that this was a Death Machine reference. There was no Death Machine on Origins, however, so they tried to use the next closest thing, the new MG08, but that didn't work. Then they tried to use an even bigger metal machine, the tank, but that didn't work either.
The Guardians of the Scroll must feel your might.
After listening to Samantha, they figured, what the heck, and went to the center pit where Templar zombies began to spawn with white hands. When punched with winded fists, the glow went away.
And I think I only have 1 or 2 of these Templar zombies left that I have to fist. I'm fisting the zombies until I get the drop. And you'll see it. It's like the Brofist stone. But it's glowing white, and then all you have to do is run over it, pick it up, and you have your, look at that, wield the fist of iron. Nice.
This stone gave a melee so strong it could one-hit zombies up to round 26, but then changed in Black Ops 3 to round 18. The players were now onto the final stretch to the world's first completion of Black Ops 2 Zombies finale. Step 7 was to raise hell. In this case, it didn't mean to raise a little demon child named Samantha, but instead defeating the souls of the ancients. To my knowledge, at this point, it was pretty much a neck-and-neck race between NGT Zombies and Mr. Rafflewaffles, and it went like this.
Nice! We freed Samantha. We got our achievement, Little Lost Girl. And that's step number 7, raise hell. So free the souls of the ancient ones, raising hell, I guess. We're raising the hell. Raise a little hell, raise a little hell, raise a little hell, right? We're not done yet. There's one last part. That is step number 8. Freedom.
We know that after this, Spiderbite would die and lost the world's first lead to Mr. Rafflewaffles. In the process of resetting, however, Mr. Rafflewaffles and his team of Liam Winter, Star Wars Bob, and Saggy Berries claim victory, and it was great to see that Star Wars Bob had, at this point, grown a lot from Moon and the Shang days, to now being a part of quite a few world's firsts without the guides telling him what to do.
Oh my god! 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 I'm crying right now!
After the insane puzzle hell that Treyarch had put players through, you might think that the final step Milo's team completed to claim victory was super complex and difficult, but that solution was to just throw a damn Maxis drone into the big hole. This was truly game-changing for the zombies community in ways that it would take years to truly recognize. There was significant story progression, an ending cutscene, and the satisfying feeling you had done something really special for your run, in a way that no other map had provided before. That being said, at the time, there were really more questions than answers. Was it all a dream? Were the Origins the younger cast? Was Treyarch done with zombies after this? There's a lot of people that believe Origins was this beloved map for its ending, and while that's the case now, back then, this couldn't be further from the truth. The perception was that Treyarch was laughing at the player base for taking zombies so seriously, pushing players to the limit with the Easter egg and its puzzles, only for it to end with it seemingly all being a dream. With this being the first ending cutscene, some players were led to believe this would be the end of zombies, and that all the Easter eggs they had completed since Moon had just concluded with really the most simple and cliche ending possible. The reception was angry at the time, and I won't lie, I felt this way too as a kid. I couldn't believe that Treyarch would do this and end zombies in this way. As we know, we couldn't have been more wrong. Treyarch would propel zombies to new heights in Black Ops 3 and build off the incredible new fundamentals Origins had established. We have Origins to thank for a lot of what we would see in Black Ops 3, and one has to wonder whether Origins was Treyarch's testing ground to see how serious players were about zombies and the direction that Black Ops 3's zombie mode should actually take. After Origins, players would have to wait over 2 years for more Treyarch zombies, and there will be players who loved Black Ops 3 but were never around for Origins and don't realize how important this map was towards the creation of their golden age of zombies. If this is you, take some time to play it. It's truly a work of art.